There are pains in life that do not bleed, yet they cut deeper than any blade. One of those pains is entering a new family, a place where you should feel safe, included, and acknowledged, only to realize that your presence is treated like a shadow. Step-siblings who look past you, ignore your existence, or treat you like a stranger who wandered into a home where you do not belong. It can feel like you are speaking into a void, living under a roof where your name carries no weight, and your emotions seem invisible. This experience is more common than people talk about, and yet most people suffer through it quietly. They don't know how to respond. Should they fight? Should they try harder? Should they distance themselves? Or should they just pretend everything is fine? This video will guide you through this emotional battlefield. You stop being a victim of the situation and begin to rise above it, not through revenge or confrontation, but through mastery of your inner world. Let us begin with the truth. Many years of being ignored is not by accident. It is not a misunderstanding that simply went on too long. It is not a phase that got out of hand. When people maintain the same emotional distance for that long, it becomes a pattern. And patterns tell stories. They tell the truth that people refuse to say out loud. The story here may be harsh, but it is liberating once understood. Their behavior is about them, not about you. It reflects their emotional limitations, their unresolved issues, their insecurities, their loyalties, their fears, their resentments. But it does not reflect your worth. Picture this. You walk into the living room and greet your step-siblings. They barely lift their eyes. You sit down at the table and they act like you are not there. They laugh with each other, share inside jokes, whisper among themselves, and navigate the home like you're a guest who overstayed their welcome. Sometimes they are openly dismissive. Sometimes they are passive and cold. Sometimes they are polite, but only in the empty way someone would treat a stranger buying a ticket at a bus station. No hostility, but no warmth either. No insults, but no recognition. This quiet rejection is one of the most painful forms of exclusion, because it is subtle and socially acceptable. It gives you no dramatic moment to explain yourself, no clear conflict to address, no villain to point at. It is simply silence. Emotional silence. The first lesson: their silence is not proof of your worth. You are not invisible because you lack value. You are invisible because they are dealing with emotions that have nothing to do with you. The way people treat you often reveals their inner struggles more than it reveals your character. Why do step-siblings behave this way? When families blend, identities clash. Many step-siblings feel a loyalty to one biological parent, fear that the new family member will replace them, anger at the idea that their parent is shared now, discomfort with change, a resentment that you represent a part of life they did not choose. So instead of confronting their feelings, they withdraw. And withdrawal becomes rejection. But here is the twist: their reaction is not about who you are, but about what your presence symbolizes. You symbolize change, disruption, loss of control. You represent a new chapter they were not ready for. Understanding this frees you from blaming yourself. What not to do? Many people respond to this rejection by trying too hard to be accepted, chasing approval, forcing conversations, starting arguments, pretending everything is perfect, isolating themselves completely. These reactions only worsen the situation. Trying too hard makes you look desperate. Arguing makes you look aggressive. Pretending makes you feel fake. Isolating yourself turns pain into loneliness. You need a better strategy. And that strategy begins with the mindset of the Stoics, the ancient masters of emotional clarity and strength. You could have been the kindest person in the world, the most respectful, the most loyal, the most giving, the most forgiving, the most patient. You could have reached out hundreds of times. You could have tried to build bridges, tried to be present, tried to belong. And still, they may never have offered you recognition or connection, because connection cannot be forced. Belonging cannot be begged for. Acceptance cannot be negotiated into existence. Some people refuse to open the door simply because they are not emotionally capable of sharing their world with anyone outside the original structure they were born into. And some hold on to that emotional rigidity for an entire lifetime. But here is where your liberation begins. You do not have to carry their limitations into the rest of your life. You were not ignored because you lacked value. You were ignored because they lacked capacity. Understanding this is the first step in releasing decades of self-blame. Because so many people who grow up in blended families subconsciously believe, If I had been better, kinder, quieter, more helpful, more loving, they would have accepted me. But that is a lie the heart tells when it is trying to make sense of pain. You were not the problem. You were the collateral damage of dynamics that existed long before you arrived. Dynamics of loyalty, fear, misunderstanding, resentment, and emotional rigidity. Their refusal to acknowledge you for over 30 years is not proof of your failure. It is proof of their emotional immaturity. Once you see this clearly, the next step becomes possible. Letting go of the need to be accepted by people who were never willing to see you. Because one of the deepest sources of suffering in situations like these is the quiet hope that one day, they will change. One day they will reach out. One day they will apologize. One day they will explain why they were distant. One day they will welcome you. One day the family will finally feel whole. But hope, when tied to people who have not shown emotional presence for 3 decades, becomes a prison. Keeps you waiting. Keeps you wishing. Keeps you hurting. It keeps you frozen in the possibility of a future that has never shown signs of arriving. Letting go of that hope is not bitterness, it is freedom. It is choosing to live your life based on what is, not what you wish it would be. It is accepting that some stories will never close neatly, some people will never soften, some wounds will never receive a proper apology, and some relationships are not meant to be fixed. But accepting this truth does not make you weak, it makes you powerful. It means you are finally taking back the emotional energy you spent waiting for others to change. It means your identity no longer depends on people who never saw you. It means you are walking into a future defined by your choices, not by their silence. So how do you build this new identity free from the shadows of the past? It begins with grieving honestly and fully. Because overcoming the pain of being ignored for 30 years does not start with pretending you are unaffected. It starts with acknowledging that there was a loss. Not the loss of siblings themselves, because you never truly had their presence, but the loss of what siblings should have been. The loss of the family you wished for, the connection you longed for, the belonging you deserved but never received. This grief is valid. It is real. And it must be felt. You grieve the childhood you never had. You grieve the memories you never shared. You grieve the support you never felt. You grieve the phone calls that never came. You grieve the sense of home that never existed. You grieve the version of family that was never yours. And through this grief you begin to heal. Because grief is not weakness. Grief is the emotional process of letting go. Grief is the clearing of space inside you so that new identity can grow. Grief is not the end. It is the beginning of liberation. From this point, your healing becomes about rebuilding. You begin to form a life where your worth is not entangled with their behavior. You realize that the people who ignored you for over 30 years do not deserve to be the narrators of your story. They do not get to define you. They do not get to limit you. They do not get to shape your self-image. And they do not get to determine your emotional destiny. You discover that family is not only blood, it is presence. It is respect. It is reciprocity. It is care. Sometimes the people who share your DNA are far less of a family than the people you meet later in life. The friends who truly show up. The community you build. The partner who stands beside you. The children who give your world meaning. The colleagues who support you. The mentors who guide you. The neighbors who treat you with kindness. Family is not about genetics. Family is about connection. And connection is something you build intentionally, not something you chase from those who withhold it. You begin to understand that your step-sibling's rejection is not a defining moment of your life. It is simply a chapter that shaped your resilience. Because surviving over 30 years of emotional absence requires strength most people will never understand. Taught you independence. Taught you self-reliance. Taught you how to stand alone. Taught you how to navigate life without emotional support from those who were supposed to offer it. And now, as an adult, you can turn that strength into something powerful. You can set boundaries not as walls of anger, but as shields of self-respect. You can decide that you will no longer chase people who do not reciprocate. You can decide that you will no longer initiate contact unless you genuinely want to. You can decide that you will no longer shrink yourself in hopes of being accepted. You can decide that you will no longer let their silence echo inside you. You can forgive, not to repair the relationship, but to release the emotional burden. Forgiveness in this context does not mean welcoming them back. It does not mean pretending the past did not happen. does not mean trying again. It means saying, I refuse to carry this pain into the next part of my life. Forgiveness is self-liberation, not reconciliation. And once you reach this point, you finally begin to see clearly. You see that their 30 years of silence were never about you. They were about fear of change, about divided loyalty, about emotional limitations, about unresolved trauma, about identity preservation. But they were never truly about you as a person. If anything, you were simply the easiest target for their inability to adapt to new family realities. From this clarity, you can finally make peace with the truth. Not everyone is meant to play a role in your life, even if they share a parent with you. And some relationships, even familial ones, are better left in the past. Trying to force a connection with people who have ignored you for 30 years is like trying to plant seeds in soil that refuses to open. No matter how much water you pour, nothing grows. Rising above rejection with dignity and strength. The Stoics believed one powerful truth. Your peace depends on what you control, not on what others choose to see. If your step-siblings refuse to recognize you, the Stoic response is not to react emotionally, but to rise above emotionally. Let's break down the Stoic path. 1. Accept what you cannot control. You cannot control how your step-siblings feel, how quickly they adjust, their loyalty to their parent, their resentment, their emotional immaturity. What can you control? Your reactions, your self-worth, your tone, your behavior, your boundaries. Your peace acceptance is not giving up. It is releasing the illusion of control. 2. Do not chase validation. Stoics taught that needing approval is one of the surest ways to suffer. If you wait for other people to validate your identity, you become emotionally enslaved to their mood, their opinions, and their inconsistencies. You don't need step-siblings to confirm your worth. You don't need their recognition to define your identity. You don't need their acceptance to live a meaningful life. If they come around, good. If they don't, you remain unshaken. 3. Be civil but detached. A Stoic does not respond with hostility, but they also do not cling emotionally. Your approach should be polite, a calm, a grounded, self-contained. Say hello but do not expect a warm reply. Participate in family life but do not beg for connection. Respect their space but do not shrink yourself. This balance creates dignity. 4. Use silence as power. When they ignore you, you do not have to react. When they avoid you, you do not have to chase. When they talk among themselves, you don't have to feel threatened. Silence is not weakness, silence is strategy. By not reacting emotionally, you protect your peace, you deny them power over your inner state, you show emotional maturity beyond your years. The Stoics said, if it does not harm your character, then it is not harm at all. Their rejection cannot touch your character. 5. Build a life outside the step-family. A core Stoic principle. Strength comes from within, not from the approval of others. Create your own world. A friendship's a education, a hobby's goals, dreams. When you build a strong personal identity, your step-siblings' rejection becomes a background noise, not a defining force in your life. 6. Set boundaries but stay calm. If their disrespect becomes too much, state your boundaries clearly. Avoid emotional arguments, stay firm and respectful. Examples. I'm here to coexist peacefully. I'm not replacing anyone. I won't engage in disrespect. I want an environment where everyone feels respected, including me. Stoicism teaches that boundaries must be firm but never hostile. 7. Accept that not everyone will like you. This is perhaps the hardest lesson. In life, some people will dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Some will never warm up. Some will stay distant forever. You are not here to collect approval. You are here to live well. Why your step-siblings truly struggle to recognize you. Now let us look beneath the surface. The behavior of step-siblings who reject you is rarely about hatred. It is about identity conflict. 1. Loyalty conflict. Many step-siblings feel responsible for protecting their biological parent. Accepting you feels like betraying the other parent. 2. Fear of replacement. You represent a new family dynamic, a shift in attention, a new competition for parental affection. Children fear loss. Teenagers fear loss of identity. Adults fear loss of stability. Your presence triggers all three. 3. Unprocessed trauma. Divorce, separation, or death leaves emotional scars. When a new family member enters, unresolved wounds reopen. They may think, nothing feels stable anymore. I didn't choose this. I don't want change. Why should I accept someone new? Their coldness is a defense mechanism. 4. Social territory. Families operate like social ecosystems. When a new member enters, territory shifts, alliances change, roles evolve, power structures adjust. Some siblings fear losing their place. Thus, they protect it through exclusion. 5. Identity preservation. Step-siblings may disconnect because you symbolize a threat to the family identity they grew up with. You challenge the story they believe their entire lives about who belongs and who does not. Psychologically, this creates a resistance, denial, emotional distance. They are not rejecting you. They are defending their version of the past. 6. Emotional immaturity. Not everyone knows how to adapt. Not everyone knows how to communicate. Not everyone has the emotional intelligence to say, I'm struggling with this transition. So instead, they give silent hostility. What you must do for yourself to survive and thrive in such an environment. 1. Protect your mental health. A blended family can be emotionally draining. You must take care of your inner world. 2. Build resilience. Resilience is not suppressing emotions. It is understanding them and rising above them. 3. Create your own community. Family is not only blood. Family is also the people who see you, hear you, and accept you. 4. Stop interpreting rejection as proof of unworthiness. Rejection says more about the person rejecting than the one rejected. 5. Accept the story for what it is, not what it should be. To find peace, you must let go of the fantasy of what you wished your family would be. You do not need their recognition to become who you are. If your step-siblings do not recognize you, remember, you are not invisible. You are simply living among people who are emotionally limited. You cannot force love. You cannot force belonging. But you can force yourself to grow, to rise, and to build a life where your worth is not negotiated. Your story does not depend on their acceptance. Your identity does not depend on their acknowledgement. Your future does not depend on their recognition. Walk with dignity, live with purpose, and let their silence be nothing more than background noise in the symphony of your becoming.